Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy DiamondBack back here again with a new video. Today I'm reacting to Charlie's, aka Moist Critical's take on what's going on with the whole Schedule 1 situation and how another company who owns a different type of making weed simulator game is running an investigation into it, possibly to bring down a lawsuit in the future. I hope y'all enjoy the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All my socials will be linked down in the description below, and I'll see y'all in the next one. This copyright investigation is crazy.
You're looking at an addict, but not to drugs, something much harder and much more noble, drug dealing. It feels good to supply the community with product that they really want and treasure. It really, I'm like Santa Claus, but with smokable items that they really enjoy. Yes. Schedule 1's got me in a titty twister. I love that game so much. And yesterday, I made a video talking about an investigation that's been launched into Schedule 1 on the grounds of potential copyright infringement. It was launched by a...
Yeah, I saw a clip of something talking about this on TikTok. It sounds insane that a whole different game, they're trying to get these guys copyrighted because their game is way more popular than theirs, I guess.
Publisher called Movie Games, and they have a title that also competes in this genre called Drug Dealer Simulator. It's a very competitive genre now. It is cutthroat out here. It's like rival cartels going at each other now. And over the last...
It's cutthroat out here, but there's only like 3 games that are like that.
24 hours, there's been a lot of new developments here in this season of Breaking Bad Gamer Edition, with a statement from Movie Games themselves, as well as the developer of Drug Dealer Simulator, Bite Runner, coming forward. Also, I want to make a mention of this. I talked about it on stream briefly, but I changed the title of yesterday's video covering this. I initially called it a lawsuit that they launched against Schedule 1, because that's how a lot of other media reported it, as a lawsuit that had been launched. But it's not 100% accurate to say that. It's an investigation that's been launched, which does start the process of a lawsuit if Movie Games decided to pursue it. But right now what it is an investigation after they've said they've identified infringing material in like the narrative, mechanics, UI. I also saw other words expressed saying they identified characteristics of unfair competition. But anyway, there's not an official lawsuit they filed. It is an investigation, which, yes, could lead to a lawsuit later on if Movie Games decides they want to go down that path. Nintendo did something similar pretty recently with Pow World, where they investigated Pow World and then later down the line launched their lawsuit. So it could happen, but from their statement, it sounds like that's not what they're trying to do. Dear gamers, we'd like to address the Schedule 1 Drug Dealer Simulator situation and share some facts. 1. There is no lawsuit. 2. It is not our intention to prevent Tyler Video Game Studio from selling or developing their game. 3. There is an investigation into the nature of similarities between the games since a preliminary legal analysis indicated there might have been an infringement.
Okay. They put this out just to cover their own ass. Because they know, I've seen on Steam, I've seen on clips, these guys who love Schedule 1 are review bombing all their games. Like, I've seen it, it's overwhelmingly negative. And it's getting worse by the day.
4. The analysis and investigation were necessary in light of repeating opinions that the games are very similar. By not investigating it, Movie Games, being a publicly traded company, could face severe consequences for negligence. Let me just take a brief pause here. That one is really confusing to me because obviously there's going to be similarities between the games. They're in the same fucking genre. That's to be expected. There's nothing copyright infringing about sharing mechanics in the same genre. There's only so many things you can do to make fucking weed, right? But you're saying that repeating opinions are what drove you to this about how similar they are. How does that work when you filed this investigation the same day Schedule 1 launched? They filed this on March 24th, the launch day of Schedule 1. How many repeating opinions could there have possibly been? Like, it's not like this is something that had been simmering and bubbling over like speculation. Did Schedule 1 infringe upon Drug Dealer Simulator's copyright? Like, that wasn't a prevailing thought process. This happened immediately when Schedule 1 launched. My best guess is they're referring to their...
those guys are full of shit, bro. What the hell?
Legal analysis that had this repeating opinion that they share a lot of suspicious similarities. But that doesn't really pass the smell test for me either, because there's other drug dealing games out there that I think share more in common with Drug Dealer Simulator than Schedule 1 does, and they didn't get hit with an investigation by Movie Games.
Okay. The only reason these guys got hit with an investigation, their game was more popular. It's as simple as that, bro. It's just jealousy, man. It's just jealousy out here, bro.
And another thing that really baffles me, why just Schedule 1? From what I've seen, I don't think Movie Games has gone after other drug dealing simulator games, like
yeah.
Weed Shop, for example, a game near and dear to my boners. Weed Shop and Drug Dealer Simulator also share a lot in common. Like, a lot. They do. But Weed Shop didn't have Movie Games knocking on their door, taking a peek under the hood to make sure everything was, A-OK there with no infringements. And while I understand companies have to defend their copyright, otherwise they're going to lose it, and it's a big problem for them, it's something I'm very well aware of. I've talked about it before. This doesn't really feel to me like a case of them doing that just for the sake of, doing their due diligence, making sure, no one tries to hit them for negligence. Because they haven't done this for any of the other drug dealing games in the genre, like Weed Shop and other ones that do share similarities, a lot of similarities with Drug Dealer Simulator. It seems like it is specifically targeted at Schedule 1 and none of the others. Anyway, though, to number 5, they said, the above was communicated only via SP, a stock market communication system where we are obligated to publish such information for full transparency. Not publishing it would also be a case of negligence. From there, it was picked up by media and in some cases wrongfully reported as a lawsuit. And then number 6. The above is handled only by Movie Games, the publisher, not Byte Runners, the developer of Drug Dealer Simulator. The developer is not involved in it whatsoever. There's no ill will towards Tyler. We even emailed them best wishes shortly before the release when the game was already huge, but before the investigation was deemed necessary. However, we are obligated to perform this investigation, act accordingly to the scope of the infringements if it's confirmed, and inform the public about it via SP. So, there's quite a bit I want to say here. So number 1, they're 100% right on. There is no lawsuit. They have not filed a lawsuit. It is an investigation. Could lead to a lawsuit if they choose to, and that's something they mentioned at the end. They might go down that path, or maybe they'll ask Tyler to change certain things about the game. Who's to say? But there is no lawsuit. That is correct. But my 2 cents, this really does feel like they are trying to find some wiggle room, some ground to stand on for action against Schedule 1 in some capacity. I think number 2, they're probably absolutely right about that. They're not trying to have it, get taken down or have Tyler not be able to sell it or anything. Probably not going that route. I think they're trying to look for some kind of middle ground of you change these things or you infringed upon this copyright, so here's, a price you'll have to pay for that. So something in that realm is more what I think the goal is, because this doesn't feel like just normal routine, business as usual here, because they haven't done it for other drug dealing games that share plenty of similarities with Drug Dealer Simulator. But what I really want to make a mention of here is that the tone of this is far more friendly than the investigation seems. This seems like they're trying to just, hey, we love Tyler and what he's done with Schedule 1.
That's crazy. But
we just had to investigate because we're a publicly traded company and we want to make sure everyone knows that we're doing our due diligence. There's no negligence here. We're making sure it's just, some coinky-dinks. We're in the same genre. It's just going to be a couple of little similarities, but nothing infringing or anything.
Oh my god.
That's kind of how it comes across here. But in the investigation, they have kind of a different tone to it. Instead of saying, we're just checking things out to make sure, they explicitly use the word identified. In 2 instances that I can find on the investigation report, there has been a mention of they identified unfair acts of competition, and that they have identified several elements that were used that infringed on their copyrights, like in story, mechanics, and UI. That's very different than just saying, hey, we're just checking things out. Hey, we're just doing a little perusal here. Maybe it's a mistranslation. I think that's definitely possible here from the initial reports. But when you say things like you have identified the unfair acts of competition, you have identified several elements that were protected by copyright, that's already saying you have found things that you believe there is an issue with, and now you are investigating further in case there's more, or to analyze the extent of it. Whereas in the statement, they portray it as though this is just something they need to do as a publicly traded company because there's similarities and they want to ensure there's no copyright infringement. They talk about how there may be copyright infringement, so they just needed to check and make sure. Whereas in the investigation report, they do explicitly say that they identified the usage of several things that were protected by copyright. So, to me, that's just a little contradictory. I think that conflicts a little bit there.
100%.
Now, again, it could be a mistranslation. I do think that's definitely possible. We'll have to wait and see what shakes out from all of this. But there just is a difference to them saying, oh, we just do this because these games are really similar. We want to make sure everything's okay. versus we identified things that are not okay. And
what was I gonna say? Yeah, they're totally pulled that whole statement out of their ass, bro. Like, there are a lot more games that are similar, not just Schedule 1. They're just trying to bully out the biggest competition, because Schedule 1's the biggest game right now. It's outperforming their own game. That's exactly the premise, bro. Like, there's only so much you can do with a game that's about selling drugs, you know? Like, there's not, like, you can't go too crazy with it, you know what I mean?
And now we're investigating further. Those are just two very different things in my eyes. Now, as I mentioned, the developers behind the game also came forward. They said, in light of the recent movie games vs. Schedule 1 legal investigation controversy, I would like to state that we, Byte Runners, the development studio behind Drug Dealer Simulator series, do not have any ill intentions towards neither Schedule 1, Tyler, or the game community. Actions taken by our publisher, Movie Games, are part of their internal policy and business interest, which we have no influence over. We were not informed about their plans and are also surprised by this course of action. We are currently in talks with Movie Games on the matter. For now, we do not want to publicly neither condone nor approve the actions before these talks come to any conclusions. And then they go on.
Yeah, this guy is threw the publishers under the bus, bro. I mean, yeah, but the publishers put the Byte Runner guys in a bad spot right here, because they're doing all this. If it goes nowhere, then they just have this over their head for the rest of the company's career, or however long they're running.
To congratulate Tyler for the success of Schedule 1, and mentions that they want everyone to just support whatever game they choose and want to make their game the best it can possibly be. Byte Runners themselves obviously had no hand in any of this. This was solely a decision made by Movie Games, and Byte Runner comes out to confirm that, and even mentions that they were just as surprised as everyone else was with this action that Movie Games
100%.
has taken here. Now, I saw some people upset that they didn't fully come out with, like, you know, the iron fist and say this was really bad for Movie Games, but I understand it's a very tricky situation for them to be in, because that's their publisher.
Yeah.
They can't just bite the hand that feeds them like that and potentially just lose their studio like that. It's not something that any developer can reasonably do. So I think that's a very unfair criticism of Byte Runners. I think this statement is totally fine. And there's something in here that I find very interesting about how this all unfolded. Byte Runners said they were just as surprised as everyone else, meaning Movie Games must not have consulted any of the developers about this copyright infringement that they believe was potentially happening. How the fuck would the publisher pursue this without even consulting the developers of the title? It's not like they were in the lab, like, fucking coding it themselves, making the game. How could they possibly say that something was potentially stolen from them, or toes were stepped on in regards to their copyright with Schedule 1 without ever even talking to your own developers about it? That feels so weird to me. I don't know if that's weird to anyone else, but I thought that just sounded really backwards. Now, I did reach out to both Byte Runners as well as Movie Games to ask more specifics about what they think could even potentially be a copyright infringement between these two titles, and why this action would be taken against Schedule 1 but no other Drug Dealer Simulator game. Because I truly can't wrap my noodle around what could possibly be a copyright infringement here in the first place. Drug Dealer Simulator was not the only drug dealing sim game on the market. There's a handful of them. There's nothing super unique about that concept. There's nothing there that I believe is exclusive to just Movie Games property that no other game can ever use without stealing from them. Like, it's not like Spider-Man, for example, right? It's not like Tyler made a Spider-Man ripoff where instead of slinging webs from his hands, he's slinging webs from his feet. Then you've clearly got yourself an issue there. Here, it's similar mechanics, sure, because it's the same genre. There's only so many ways you can be making these drugs and distributing them on the street, using a phone to contact people. Like, all of these things are, of course, going to be similar. So I'm just so curious to hear from them what specifics they're even looking at in regards to a potential copyright infringement. I just don't get it. Because I don't think it should have ever even come to this in the first place. Maybe it's all a huge misunderstanding, but I still just don't even see why the investigation would be led underway in the first place, stating that they've identified, you know, copyright infringing uses of story mechanics and UI. Like, that, to me, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm hoping to get
Yeah,
some
it's
answers
very
from
confusing.
them soon, and I'll let you all know if I
But
do.
it is
Anyway, I wanted to just give you an update
the
to
way
this.
this is gonna be.
That's really about
a
it.
legit thing,
See ya.
man. And there's video ends. Yo, so what do you think, chat? Yeah, it's just crazy, man. I love this game. I do have a video coming out tomorrow